I'm Emma Hartley, 40 years old, and for 15 years, I've carried the searing pain of a betrayal that stripped me of my culinary dreams and forced me to rebuild from the ashes. It was the autumn of 2010, a chilly October evening in London, the air crisp with the scent of roasting chestnuts from street vendors along the Thames and the faint metallic tang of rain-soaked cobblestones, when I faced my former mentor, Chef Alain Dubois, in the bustling kitchen of Le Cygne d'Or, a Michelin-starred restaurant in Mayfair. The kitchen, with its gleaming stainless steel counters, racks of gleaming pots, and the rhythmic clatter of knives against chopping boards, had been my sanctuary during the grueling 14-hour shifts that defined my early career, a place where the sizzle of pans and the aroma of truffle oil had fueled my passion. But that night it turned into a battlefield where my aspirations were crushed under the weight of his ambition. I was 25 then, a talented sous chef with a flair for innovative fusion cuisine, my signature dish, a delicate lavender-infused duck confit with a pomegranate reduction, winning rave reviews and catching the eye of food critics, my recipes earning whispers of a head chef promotion among the harried staff who admired my creativity. I joined Le Cygne d'Or in 2008 after graduating top of my class from Le Cordon Bleu in London, bringing a fresh vision to a restaurant steeped in tradition. Aging ovens, rigid French techniques, a staff turnover that hovered around 25%, my name a quiet hope among colleagues who saw me as the future of the kitchen. But that evening, as I presented a detailed menu overhaul proposal featuring seasonal British ingredients, a fusion tapas concept, and a pilot tasting event with local suppliers to secure a second Michelin star and elevate the restaurant's status, Alain's demeanor shifted from guide to adversary, his posture stiffening as he wiped his hands on a pristine towel. "You'll never run this kitchen, Emma. Stick to washing dishes," he barked, his French accent cutting through the hum of the exhaust fans, his eyes narrowing with a mix of disdain and jealousy as he leaned against the counter, a sneer curling his lips. He confessed, with a dismissive wave of his hand, that he'd stolen my menu, submitting it under his name to the Michelin inspectors just weeks before my pitch, securing the coveted star and a glowing profile in The Guardian that praised his genius. To bury me, he orchestrated my demotion with fabricated accusations, inconsistent plating based on staged photos of my dishes, disruptive behavior from a fabricated outburst during a service, supported by a loyal sous chef he'd bribed, and a conveniently timed inventory error that lost my recipe notebooks, which I'd stored in a locked drawer that mysteriously appeared open after a late shift. The restaurant's management, swayed by Alain's 15-year tenure, his connections to Parisian food elites, and my lack of allies, my notes vanished, leaving me defenseless, upheld his decision in 2011, reassigning me to prep work, my reputation tarnished across London's culinary scene as unreliable and temperamental, a label that clung to me like the grease on my apron. My partner, James, a gentle graphic designer with a love for sketching food illustrations and a quiet strength, stood by me, but our savings dwindled under rent hikes in Camden, our dream of a countryside cottage with a herb garden fading into the cramped reality of a flat with peeling wallpaper, a lopsided sofa, and a dripping tap that echoed through the nights. Those words, "Never run this kitchen," "Stick to washing dishes," became a relentless echo, a bitter refrain that haunted every chop, every stir, every moment I scrubbed pots in silence, the sound mingling with the clink of plates and the sizzle of oil. I can still feel the weight of those early months after the demotion, sitting on that lopsided sofa in our Camden flat, the distant chime of Bake Ben a reminder of my fall from grace. As I flipped through culinary magazines and job listings in the Times, the ink smudging my fingers with each turn of the page, my eyes stinging with exhaustion after sleepless nights replaying Alain's betrayal. The flat, with its thrift store furniture, a wobbly table James had salvaged from a skip, a chair with a torn cushion he'd patched with duct tape, and a single window overlooking a brick wall where graffiti artists left their marks, felt a universe away from the vibrant kitchen I'd nurtured, its air heavy with the lingering scent of garlic and thyme I'd brought home on my clothes, a reminder of the life I'd lost. James took on freelance gigs, designing logos for local cafes, illustrating menus for pop-ups, his evenings spent sketching under a flickering desk lamp, the scent of charcoal and paper a testament to his sacrifice, while I pieced together a fragile existence with catering jobs at weddings in Islington, private dinner parties in Kensington, and weekend shifts at a community kitchen in Brixton. Each dish a battle to reclaim my craft, every pound a step toward survival in a city where rent soared. And Michelin dreams felt distant. Our son, Oliver, born in 2012 after years of hoping, grew up surrounded by cookbooks stacked to the ceiling, his childish questions a tender ache. "Why don't you cook at the fancy place anymore, Mummy?" he'd ask, his small hands tracing the edges of my worn copy of the River Cafe cookbook. I'd smile through the tightness in my chest, spinning tales of new culinary adventures to feed the world, but the truth gnawed at me. Alain had poisoned my network, his narrative of my instability spreading to restaurant owners and critics, his charm a mask for his deceit, leaving me blacklisted from head chef roles. Alain's career flourished in the years that followed. By 2015, he'd opened a second restaurant, Le Nid d'Or, in Soho, his name etched on awards from the world's 50 best restaurants. His wealth evident in a Kensington townhouse with a rooftop garden, a holiday villa in Provence, and a leased Range Rover for his commutes. He hosted lavish food festivals at the Tate Modern, his wife Claire dazzling in designer gowns at charity dinners for slow food, his daughter Sophie climbing the culinary ladder with a degree from Le Cordon Bleu, while I rebuilt quietly, starting a pop-up supper club by 2014 from our living room. My events grew. Food bloggers from Shoreditch, families from Hackney, who savored my fusion dishes, my reputation a quiet undercurrent in London's food scene, passed along at farmers' markets and food fairs. But the wound festered with every milestone of Alain's success, his smug masterclasses at Borough Market, Claire's Instagram posts from the French Riviera, Sophie's sous chef role at his new venture, each encounter a fresh cut. My parents, both gone by 2019, had believed his lies, their final years dimmed by his version of events, their letters filled with concern over my struggles. Oliver, now a culinary student at Westminster Kingsway College, wrestled with guilt, his early career shadowed by Alain's influence, his attempts to reconcile with me strained by his childhood respect for the man. James's unwavering support, his hand-painted kitchen tiles, his late-night discussions over cups of Earl Grey, his sketches of my dishes, kept me anchored, his love a steady flame in the cold. The turning point came 5 years ago, in 2020, when the first cracks in Alain's polished facade emerged. His restaurants faced health code violations over spoiled ingredients, customers posted viral complaints on Twitter about overcooked meals, and a whistleblower exposed falsified supplier invoices in a scathing Evening Standard expose. At 35, with my hands aching from years of chopping and stirring, I began my discreet investigation, tapping old colleagues over tea at greasy spoons along Brick Lane. I'd meet them in the early mornings, my notebook a shield, listening to their tales of Alain's decline. Overworked staff, cut corners, a culture of fear, over plates of bacon butties and strong tea. Last month, on July 20th, 2025, I sat with Sarah, a former line cook who'd left in 2018, at a cafe in Shoreditch, the clatter of espresso machines a faint backdrop. Her trembling hands passed me a USB drive. "He's desperate. Stolen recipes, fake reviews, pressure on staff to hide issues," she whispered, her voice thick with regret. "That menu was yours, Emma." My pulse raced. This was the evidence I'd waited for. On August 10th, 2025, I contacted Mark, a journalist with The Independent who'd uncovered restaurant scandals with a sharp pen, meeting him at his cluttered newsroom on Fleet Street. We pored over the USB, photos of my 2010 menu sketch, detailed logs of Alain's theft, emails hinting at bribed inspectors. "This could end his stars," Mark said, his eyes narrowing. "But we need the perfect stage." On August 22nd, 2025, I dug deeper, turning my cabin kitchen into a detective's lair. Amid cookbooks and spice jars, I accessed public health records online, my fingers stiff but resolute. At 10 a.m., I found it, a 2022 audit report buried in Westminster Council archives, tied to my menu, now linked to a health scandal that cost Le Signa d'Or £150,000 in fines. My hands shook as I printed it, the past merging with the present in a surge of clarity. That evening, at 6:49 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time, adjusted contextually, I sat by my window, the London skyline a soft glow, plotting my next move. The British Culinary Awards were on September 20th, a glittering event to mask Alain's decline. I'd attend, not as the dishwasher, but as his reckoning. What he didn't know was I'd transformed my pain into a recipe for justice, seasoned by 15 years of resilience. The 4 weeks leading to the awards were a delicate dance of strategy and concealment, my days running the supper club a facade for the revenge simmering in my pots. By August 25th, 2025, my Camden kitchen, its walls lined with recipe cards yellowed by steam, its table stacked with tasting notes stained with sauce, its air rich with the scent of rosemary and garlic, evolved into a command center where every scribbled adjustment and spice blend fueled my resolve. Mark and I met nightly, his notebook open on my wobbly table as we dissected the USB and audit reports, the soft clink of teaspoons against mugs a rhythm to our planning. My 2010 menu, with its lavender duck and fusion tapas, had won Alain his star, its success a pillar of his rise, while my seasonal tweaks, wild mushroom ravioli with a nettle sauce, had been misused, leading to the 2022 scandal. Sarah's data revealed a pattern: stolen dishes from 2012, fake reviews in 2019, a cover-up of a 2021 food poisoning hushed with inspector bribes, a fragile empire ready to crumble. I contacted Paul, a retired food critic who'd clashed with Alain over a 2015 review dispute, his gruff voice joining us via a shaky Skype call from his Sussex cottage. "This could strip his stars, hit him mid-speech," he advised, his tone laced with old grudges. I nodded, my plan a recipe crafted from 15 years of suppressed fury, each ingredient a memory of lost opportunities, stolen credit, shattered trust. The awards, set for 7 p.m. on September 20th, 2025, at the Savoy Hotel, would be Alain's platform, a gathering of chefs, critics, media, and food influencers, all drawn by the promise of prestige under the hotel's grand chandeliers. I'd pose as a retired chef, my chef's coat swapped for a modest dress with a hidden pocket, my movements slow with a cane to mask my intent, my dark hair tied back in a practical bun a nod to my past dignity. My role was to deliver the evidence to Mark, who'd signal Paul's critic contacts at 8 p.m., timed with Alain's acceptance speech, ensuring maximum humiliation. I secured an invitation through Oliver, now a culinary student who'd networked with a judge, his email on August 28th a laminated pass with my name in bold, his note reading, "You deserve this, Mum." He suspected nothing, his pride a tool I'd wield with precision. Preparation was a grueling ritual, a blend of physical endurance and emotional steel. I practiced my gait daily along Regent's Canal, perfecting a weary shuffle and a warm, unassuming smile that hid my burning resolve, my cane tapping a rhythm of patience against the towpath. I rehearsed lines, just here to celebrate culinary art, though each word carried the weight of Alain's betrayal, James's unwavering love, and Oliver's silent guilt over his childhood respect for the man. Physically, I prepped mock dishes and wrote menu drafts daily, my hands aching with arthritis, but each chop bolstered my will to stand tall that night. I revisited old mementos, recipe sketches from 2010, a faded photo with James at a food festival, a wooden spoon Oliver carved, a rejected pitch letter, each item a thread in the tapestry of my determination. One night, I found a charred menu page from the inventory error, its edges singed, and wept, the lost potential of fuel for my fire. I also tracked Oliver's life, his college struggles, his budding romance with a baker named Mia, hoping this act would mend our bond and secure his future. On September 17th, Alain called, his tone dripping with false warmth. "Emma, the awards are a milestone. Bring Oliver, let's show unity." I agreed, my voice steady, hiding the storm within. He didn't suspect I'd coordinated with Mark, who'd lined up Paul's contacts, or that I'd commissioned a dress with a hidden pocket, its fabric a shield of my past honor. The dress arrived on September 19th, sewn by a local seamstress from Brixton, Mrs. Patel, who chatted about her grandson's cooking, unaware of my mission. I tested the pocket, sliding the USB and awed inside, their weight a promise of justice. At 6:30 p.m. on September 20th, I arrived, the Savoy buzzing with the clink of champagne flutes and the murmur of excited chefs, the Thames glinting through the windows. Alain spotted me, near the ballroom entrance, his smirk tight. "Emma, Still playing cook? Nice try, he quipped, his eyes scanning for weakness. I nodded, my cane steady, my pocket a silent arsenal, my heart thumping with the rhythm of 15 years. At 7:45 p.m., he began his speech, launching into a tale of his culinary mastery and unveiling a new menu echoing mine. I scanned the scene, Oliver clapping awkwardly, Mia beside him, media filming, Claire sipping champagne with a smug grin, Sophie adjusting her father's notes. At 7:58 p.m., as Alan praised his vision, I edged toward Mark, my pulse a drumbeat. I slipped him the USB and awed it, whispering, "Now." He nodded, texting Paul. At 8:02 p.m., critics stormed in, badges glinting under the chandelier light, shouting, "Investigation underway." Alan's notes scattered across the stage, his face draining of color as they seized his tablet and files, the crowd erupting into chaos. The awards ceremony descended into a whirlwind of pandemonium, attendees scattering like startled pigeons, fleeing the Savoy's elegant halls, media cameras swiveling to capture every frame of the unfolding drama, Alan's shouts swallowed by the authoritative cadence of critics' commands that reverberated off the ornate ceilings, the chandeliers casting fractured light across the scene. Oliver stood frozen near a hors d'oeuvres table, Mia's hand on his arm offering silent support, his eyes wide with shock as the reality sank in, while chefs whispered furiously, their professional dreams shaken by the scandal. I stood tall, my dress a badge of my hard-earned resolve forged in the fires of 15 years, my cane a symbol of strength that had carried me through the lowest ebbs, my heart pounding with a mix of 15 years of vindication and the bittersweet ache of a family nearly lost to Alan's lies that had woven a web around us. Critics swarmed the stage, their dark suits a stark contrast to the Savoy's opulent decor of gold-trimmed walls and velvet drapes, cuffing Alan as he roared, "This is a setup! Emma, you will regret this!" his voice cracking with the desperation of a man watching his empire crumble. They read charges, plagiarism that stripped his accolades, falsified reviews that undermined his reputation, health violations that endangered lives. Each word a hammer blow to his culinary throne, the list growing with a £200,000 fine for unaccounted supplier payments that funded his villa, their voices steady as they recited the litany of his sins. Mark approached, his voice a lifeline amid the din of shouting and camera shutters. "They've got him dead to rights, Emma. You've done it. His stars are toast," he said, his eyes gleaming with the thrill of the exposé. The media frenzy was immediate. Headlines like Du Bois' empire crumbles in scandal and Chef's 15-year revenge blazed across screens by midnight, my name a whisper of awe in the chaos that swirled through the ballroom, microphones thrust toward me like lances seeking a quote. Alan turned to me, his face flushed with rage that mottled his once handsome features, sweat beading on his brow like condensation on a chilled wine glass, his tailored suit now rumpled as critics tightened their grip on his wrists, his posture slumping under the weight of defeat. "You! After all these years, you bitter little cook? You've destroyed my legacy!" he bellowed, his voice cracking with the desperation of a man whose Michelin dreams were shattering, his hands trembling as he pointed at me with a quivering finger. I met his gaze, unflinching despite the tremor in my own hands that betrayed the adrenaline coursing through me, my voice clear and resonant with the strength of 15 years of silent suffering that had tempered my resolve. "You said I'd never run this kitchen, Alan, that I was only fit for dishes. I proved you wrong, with evidence that outweighs your lies, with grit that outlasted your schemes, with every dish I crafted while you stole and faltered. This is my payback for me, for Oliver whose future you dimmed, for every chef you crushed, for every dream you burned with your ego." He lunged, his fist raised in a futile gesture of defiance that spoke of his last grasp at control, but critics restrained him with firm hands, dragging him out as Claire sobbed hysterically, her champagne glass shattering on the marble floor in a spray of shards, a symbol of her fallen status. Oliver rushed to me, his voice breaking through the noise like a lifeline cast into turbulent waters. "Mom, I didn't know. I'm so sorry for believing him," he said, tears streaking his face as he wrapped his arms around me, the first embrace in years that mended a rift I'd feared unbridgeable. I hugged him back, the warmth of his body against mine a balm to the wounds of the past, Mia nodding in support with a quiet smile, a bridge to a future reclaimed from the ashes of my career. The crowd buzzed with reporters, their microphones thrust toward me like spears seeking a soundbite to crown the night's drama, but I turned away, my victory a private flame burning bright within, a light that no headline could dim. The fallout was swift and merciless, a tempest that swept away the remnants of a land's culinary empire. Critics suspended him from Le Signe d'Or and Le Nid d'Or, seizing kitchens in Mayfair and Soho where pots sat cold, records from supplier ledgers hauled away in crates, freezing his personal accounts that held the proceeds of his deceit, halting his festival appearances across the UK where he'd once reigned, while inspectors raided his Kensington townhouse for evidence of fraud, uncovering a hidden pantry stocked with falsified invoices. His empire collapsed like a souffle that failed to rise, his reputation tarnished beyond redemption, restaurants distancing themselves with press releases, his name a cautionary tale whispered in kitchens from Brighton to Edinburgh, a fallen star replaced by silence. The media dug deeper, uncovering a £100,000 slush fund for bribed inspectors that funded his province villa and Claire's wardrobe, a detail that sent shockwaves through the British food scene and prompted a national inquiry, the scandal-dominating morning radio shows. Oliver reconciled fully, moving into our flat to help expand my supper club into a catering business, his culinary skills blending with mine, while Mia joined as a pastry chef, her creativity a new chapter. James and I rekindled our bond, planning a countryside getaway to a cottage we'd finally saved for, the scent of lavender a promise of peace. Claire vanished from charity circuits, her social circle dissolving like mist, and Sophie, a land's daughter, distanced herself, seeking a stage under a new mentor to escape the taint. I didn't gloat. My goal was justice, not destruction, a balance I'd learned from years of feeding others. But the sight of Alain's fall brought a profound peace that filled the hollow left by his words, a quiet satisfaction that settled in my soul like a perfectly reduced sauce. That night, at 6:49 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time, contextually adjusted, I sat with a cup of tea that grew cold on the counter, the news confirming his suspension on a muted TV, a letter from Alain in hand, its envelope creased from my grip. Emma, I was wrong. Forgive me, help me. It pleaded, his handwriting shaky with the defeat that had finally overtaken him, the ink smudged as if by tears of regret. I didn't reply, the past too raw, my strength too hard-won to soften now, the paper crumpling in my fist as I set it aside to focus on the future ahead. Months later, his hearing began in a courtroom on the Strand, critics and inspectors wielding my evidence with the precision of a chef's knife, Sarah's testimony a damning narrative of kitchen corruption, and Paul's audit records a final garnish, the gallery filled with former colleagues who nodded in silent support, their aprons traded for suits. I attended the first day, my presence a silent testament to my journey from prep cook to this moment, seated beside Oliver and James, whose hand I held tightly, and watched Alain's defense crumble under the weight of truth. Dozens of former staff stepping forward with tales of pressure and theft, their voices a chorus of validation that echoed through the room. The judge, a stern magistrate with a reputation for foodie leanings and a gavel that rang like a dinner bell, ordered a full investigation, hinting at a potential ban from the industry and fines that loomed like a storm cloud, his ruling a vindication of my 15-year wait. Oliver and I launched Hartley's Hearth Catering, restoring family pride with bespoke dining experiences, hiring Sarah as a line cook whose expertise bridged my past and present, while James retired from design to teach art to kids at a community center, his hands finding new purpose in clay. I visited Le Signe d'Or once, its kitchen silent with the absence of Alain's commands. It stows a memory of my youth, a monument to his greed and my redemption that stood tall in my heart. My revenge, 15 years in the making, was not just justice served with a side of spite. It was my rebirth, a career reclaimed from the embers of his sabotage, a testament to the resilience I'd always carried within, a flame that burned brighter with each dish I plated.